Welcome back, everyone, to another episode. I'm your host, Annalena. And again, today I have a wonderful guest here with me. Her name is Theresa Lear Levine. Before I formally introduce you, I want to give you a warm welcome. Super happy you're here with us.
Aw. I'm really happy to be here, Annalena. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, absolutely. And yeah, her work is very much related to what I believe in. This is why she's here. And I'm just going to give you a very brief bio and then we'll dive into your story because I'm actually curious myself to learn more about it. So, Teresa is an EFT Master Practitioner, hypnotherapist, and the founder of Becoming More Me. I love that name. And her Becoming More You coaching program helps high achieving ADHD entrepreneurs to heal past trauma, release limiting beliefs, and align with abundance to create pleasure-fueled lives and businesses totally free from anxiety and overwhelm. Don't we all want that?
Not
And
totally free, but
yeah, and then you also shared with me in the intake form that in your early 20s you had multiple car accidents that led you into a healing journey. And I think then you realized it wasn't just about healing the physical things in your body, but also about a lot of trauma and the things like self-worth issues and all that good stuff, right? We all, I think, encounter at some point that's holding us back. So, yeah, I would love to hear a little bit more about your story and what led you into this world of nervous system regulation, EFT, hypnotherapy.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, the story's not so much about what happened to me, right? It's just kind
Mhm.
of about the way things transformed
Yeah.
along that. And the work that I do now is really about helping women. And I tend to work mostly with midlife women, a lot of busy-minded ADHD entrepreneurs who are just wanting to really come back into coherence with like the capital T truth of who they are, what they are, and you
Mhm.
know, just who are actually like wanting to like bring that into the present. And a lot of us have trouble getting present. So in my story, I did have those car accidents that you mentioned when I was a lot younger. And that was after, certain, I would say even not even capital T traumas that happened when I was younger, but you know how those little traumas kind of add up and all of a sudden there's more self-doubt and there's less self-trust. And then on top of that, I had these car accidents, right? And it just really chipped away at the identity that I had created for myself and the life I thought I'd be living, the job I thought I'd be doing, and how, my future looked at the time and kind of makes you question everything. So from that place with very little self-trust, I ended up, dating the man that became my husband at that time. And we had my first son. I've got four boys now. One was from my first marriage. The other three are from my current marriage. And it wasn't terribly aligned from the get-go with me
Mhm.
and my first husband, but I didn't have that confidence and that self-trust and that my inner knowing was not really solidified at that time. Like even though I knew it, I wasn't willing to trust my own intuition at that time. So there was a lot more self-abandonment and things that were happening. And in hindsight, I can really see the hows and whys about that, but it was something that I needed to go through in order to get a better foundation and really understand myself better and the power within me and so forth. So as I got older into my 30s, deeper into spiritual journey and understanding energy and so forth, that's when I really realized that kind of years of accumulating knowledge, certifications, all of that kind of stuff is great on some level. However, I was having a lot of trouble translating that into taking action because my nervous system and my subconscious blocks were really like kind
Mhm.
of throwing roadblocks out there for me.
Wow.
And of course, I didn't know that. I think anybody who knows that would then obviously do deeper work in order to create more relaxed success and ease and abundance in their lives. But this isn't the kind of stuff that we're learning in school or anything else. So, figured it out on my own. And that's kind of become my body of work because as I began working with my own nervous system and kind of unraveling the things that were clogging up the work subconsciously, it was like all of these things that I'd collected, these bits of wisdom and intelligence and things became actionable because there was that felt sense of safety that was being cultivated that allowed action to be taken. And that's what fascinated me so much because it was like years of feeling like there was this invisible wall between me and the relaxed, fulfilling, pleasure-fueled success that I wanted. And instead I was just so stuck in the masculine, the hustle, the strive, achieve, go complete a goal kind of mindset. And it wasn't fulfilling at all. And I knew that I wanted something different as a mom, as a wife, as a business owner. And as I shared more of that, I recognized that I was definitely not alone in that, and that other people really wanted to create those shifts in their lives and businesses too.
Yeah, I can relate to everything you're saying, because I think I went on a similar path. I
Mhm.
also was in, well, I have a daughter, my first marriage. Um, and I was also like, I wasn't fully trusting myself. And now I'm in another relationship. It's totally different dynamic. And it has really been this journey of finding back home to yourself, right? Becoming more of who I really am. And as an entrepreneur, and so I'm not diagnosed with ADHD, but I can relate to all of the things. And I think in today's world, with all the distractions, we probably like, and I know there's a diagnosis and there's a certain spectrum, right? Some maybe a little bit less and
So
some more.
unimportant though. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, it's a label. At the end of the day, it's a label. And I
Yeah.
think that, label or not, everybody's got distractions and
Yeah.
focus issues
Yeah.
these days. It's like,
Yeah.
how can you not in a world where like everything
Hmm.
has notifications attached to it? And then there's so much going on in the news all the time and so much going on in our lives. It's so hard to be focused. So,
Hmm.
sure, there's perhaps different challenges or more intense distraction, focus issues, impulsivity, whatever the case may
Hmm.
be with the ADHD diagnosis. But
Yeah.
I really feel like a lot of people can relate to
Yeah,
distractibility these days.
I really think almost everybody can probably relate to some extent, right? Kind of being all over the place, hard time to focus and all of it. And so as an entrepreneur, because that's what also when I started about 8 years ago, I made a lot of decisions from a dysregulated nervous system. It came from scarcity, it came from pressure, and then no wonder these investments often or always didn't work out the way I thought they were working out. It's also we're kind of placing expectations on somebody else, but we have to do the work. And I think you wrote it here. It's like, we know what we need to do, but we're not doing it. We're frozen. There's this like doubt that's kind of pulling you down. And everything too that I have been learning on my journey. And for me, the access point has also been the energy healing, and EFT tapping is also part of that, but also human design and gene keys. And for me, the biggest realization here was that we have to get out of this masculine and we have to shift more into the feminine so that we can connect. Because I think oftentimes when we take action, it's also from the misaligned place. It's what we think we need to do, but it may not be super aligned, right? It may be something that's just like modeling somebody else's path. But when we really go deep inside, there's also like a shift or recalibration happening to what is even my path, right? And then when I'm more in this like relaxed thing, and I think it's an ongoing work. At least for me, like I really feel like it's a process, and it's not like I'm dysregulated and a week later I'm regulated, right? It's like a slowly steady journey how we get
Sure.
there. But now it's like looking back, where I was 8 years ago and where I'm at right now, it's really like, oh wow, it's really now that I'm so aware of, okay, am I making this decision because of scarcity, because of pressure, because of anxiety that otherwise it's not going to work out? Or does this really come from a grounded, calm, and aligned place where I'm also allowing myself to receive the support so I don't have to do it all by myself, right? It's such a important distinction and totally different because the energy behind it, and it's like your nervous system, and also from what you're saying, it's really like the foundation of everything, right? It's like you can
Absolutely.
do all the things from a dysregulated nervous system, and then the house has no foundation. It's gonna crumble at some point. But if you have the regulated nervous system, it may go slower, but you build something solid, something that can last, that's
Yep.
sustainable.
I always like to say slow is the new fast. And,
Mhm.
I think this has to do a lot with the capacity that you
Mhm.
build when you're doing some of those things that you were mentioning, whether that's, energetic work, EFT, whatever you're doing to nourish the nervous system, work with the subconscious, is also going to increase your nervous system capacity, which
Mhm.
then, as you said, like, we're never done with having troubles, challenges, issues, setbacks. And if you are a successful entrepreneur, you're going to find these periods of expansion that feel amazing and great and sometimes terrifying also. And then you're also going to have like a
Okay.
period of contraction, right? Totally normal. It's going to happen time and time again, but your capacity to handle that change, which is built up and strengthened through nervous system nourishment, is greatly going to impact how long the contraction part lasts or how
Mhm.
much you can hold in expansion, and all sorts of other great things. So, like you're saying, you're noticing now that things are like it's a little easier, or you're moving through it a little bit faster, or whatever. And that's just um, that is really the one of the greatest benefits of working with your nervous system, right? Like kind of like it's like less downtime where you don't have to be, and more time where you're aligned and where you want to be.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really like a game changer. So you use in particular EFT tapping and also hypnotherapy. Like what is your approach, when you start working with clients that I guess come to you when they feel like they have a dysregulated nervous system?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, I want to find out as much as I can about what they're experiencing, what they've
Mhm.
already tried, what their experience has been with things like therapy. If that's for some people, it's left a bad taste in their mouth, or they've talked things out so much that they're just tired of talking about it and not experiencing actual change. And a lot of that usually is because, talking about it can bring a certain amount of relief, but it doesn't actually work with the root cause. So we can feel it for a little bit, but then we kind of go back to where we were, and that's why we kind of always feel like we're circling the same issues over and over again, oftentimes with talk therapy. So I'm going to do a really good thorough intake so I can understand a lot of these things from the get-go, and then we dive in with EFT and or hypnotherapy. They're not happening simultaneously, so I don't want to get that picture that we're like
Mhm.
we're doing it at the same time. But
Yeah.
I do feel like there are techniques that piggyback really lovely. So what
Mhm.
we can't kind of work through as fully with one technique, we can with the other one. And sometimes it's those subconscious blocks or those repressed memories or whatever else that need to be worked with. Sometimes it's the stuff that we definitely know or we know better, but we can't do better kind of thing. And sometimes it's just these emotions that are just clogging up the works and we don't understand how to move them or
Mhm.
how to feel differently. Or we're judging ourselves for feeling a certain way, and that creates more more
This
of the problem to begin with.
this is a good point you mentioned, and I want to go a little bit deeper because I think that's going to be so helpful for people where you say we were judging ourselves. So on my journey, and I don't even remember like now when it was, but several years ago, I was doing all the work, the emotional energy healing work and everything. And at some point I realized, oh my God, I'm still judging myself for it. So I was in resistance, right? And I now always bring this up with my clients because you gotta be aware first that you're actually judging yourself because you can do all the work, but if you're still judging, because what we resist persists, right?
Oh
And
yeah.
so yeah, it's so easy to kind of miss that step. And I would love for you to explain a little bit as a master practitioner, like what is EFT? How does it work? Why does it work? How is this different from you mentioned talk therapy?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to do that. And I appreciate everything you said about the judgment because it does. It keeps us in resistance. And I would say resistance is one of the main things that I work with people on because that is what keeps the nervous system contracted, right? No matter how many tools we use. Like you said, you were deep in it for years. I still come up against resistance. I think we all do. So it's just a matter of how we approach it and can move through it differently with capacity. So EFT is cool combination of ancient Chinese medicine and modern psychology. And I love that we can kind of bring in as much woo and spirituality to it as we want, but that it's also totally backed by science and extremely effective on quite literally anything you can feel. So physical, mental, emotional, spiritual issues can all be brought to the table with EFT tapping, and great change is possible. And what happens when we do tapping is that we send this signal as we're tapping what are known as meridian endpoints. We have thousands of these on the body. If you look at an acupuncture chart, it'll blow your mind how many different points are all over the place, you know? But with EFT, we really only need about 9 of those points for a complete energetic overhaul. And as we tap those points, we're speaking about whatever the thing is that is most bothering us at the moment. Specificity is important because it if we can speak directly to what the problem is, it's more likely that we're going to be able to unblock that energetic blockage. And for any dis-ease we are experiencing, whether that is an emotion like resistance or a twisted ankle or some kind of pain from past trauma, whatever the case may be, whatever the dis-ease is, the cause is an energetic blockage.
Yeah.
Right? So when we can release energetic blockages, we in turn feel differently, feel better, so to speak. So we're tapping these points while we're speaking about the issue. Meanwhile, a signal is going directly to the amygdala, that little almond-shaped part of the brain that is where fight, flight, freeze, flee, flop, fuck, all those things are happening that mess everything up. So we get to calm that down really quickly, really effectively. And that also begins to bring our stress hormones, our cortisol down. And as we do that, logic, rationality, all of those things are restored, and our ability to see things from a different perspective, to feel things differently, and to allow those blockages to kind of dissipate and the emotions to kind of come up and out. It's amazing. It's amazing what can happen in 5 minutes with a little EFT tapping and the right kind of guidance and expertise there.
Mhm.
So much can change. So that's kind of the heart and soul of EFT tapping. And I fell in love with it when I first tried it. It's one of those amazing tools where it's like if you've never tried it, probably gonna think it looks a little bit weird. Sure, you're
Yeah.
tapping, you're talking, doing
Yeah.
this kind of stuff that's a little bizarre. Exactly. But if you try it on something tangible, like a headache or an actual thing that you can feel and feel shift in the moment, even something like resistance, you can tell if your resistance
Mhm.
softens pretty
Mhm.
quickly. You will, I won't need to try to sell you on it or prove anything to you. It proves itself as you use it. And it's really an amazing tool.
Yeah. And what would you say about how important it is to use it consistently if somebody really wants to see results?
I mean, it's hit or miss there. I mean, I know I always work with my clients, and that's a question they ask me all the time. It's like, how often do I need to do this? It's like,
Mm.
well, it really kind of depends on what you're feeling and what you're experiencing. It's very easy if you sat down and you were to think about everything that you would desire some kind of transformation, shift, whatever with, to come up with at least 100 things pretty easily. I think anybody could do that. And you could tap a, a round of tapping, 5 minutes, 10 minutes a day for as long as you like. Or you could just tap on the things that are particularly bothersome to you when they happen and not worry about it on the other days. There doesn't need to be a set schedule for progress, but it is a great tool to not forget is in your toolbox, because when it's helpful, it's so easy to it's available to anybody. And it really does make a huge difference. But there's no particular schedule. I think when you'll do it is the best time to do it, and when you need it is the best time to use it.
Yeah. Yeah. For my own journey, when I first started to use it, I used it more because there was more emotional intensity coming up. And I really realized quickly that when I just went with the flow, whatever I wanted to say,
Hmm.
like freestyle, not suppressing or saying things in a nice way, I just really unfiltered, let it out. Oftentimes, as I was tapping, also emotions start to flow. And then
Mm.
it often brought me back to like something in my childhood that I didn't realize this was connected to. Oh yeah, this triggers me so much because when I was a kid, da 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 da. And that was amazing to me that somehow the body knew what this is connected to. And I don't think I could have gotten to this through like journaling or, trying to figure this out and stuff like that. And I think that happens when you just like you fully surrender into the process. And yeah, now I use it more like you say, like when something comes up, and it's usually pretty quick. you know? One more question I have for you. So, because when we do tapping, we may say things that we don't want to say in front of kids or our partner or anybody. So I'm always like, well, do it in the shower or out in nature or in the car while you're standing, put some music on and just get it all out. What is your approach to that when people feel like, because I think we need to be fully relaxed to do it, right? And not feel like, oh, what are other people going to think when I do that?
Yeah, I mean, you definitely want to be able to speak your truth, and it's
Mhm.
definitely helpful if you can say it out loud, although you can get some good shifts by just reciting in your head if you are not in a place or a space
Mhm.
where you could, like if your partner was in the room and you were working on
Mhm.
something about them and you don't
Yeah.
want to say that, or gosh, I know I work with people on things like, being afraid of flying or something like that. And obviously, if
Mhm.
you're on an airplane and you're already stressed out or whatever, and you're surrounded by a bunch of strangers, you don't really want to do this. So, I mean, we have meridian endpoints on the sides of our fingertips that you can
Mhm.
access really easily with a hand in a pocket while you're thinking through the things that you would normally be saying while you're tapping. There's all sorts of ways to do it. But I personally think the best and the most effective way is if you can say it out loud,
Yeah.
say it like you mean it, throw out every word that feels true to you. Don't worry about what's going to hurt somebody's feelings or is politically incorrect or anything else, and just be able to let it fly because that's usually when you make the best progress.
Yeah. Only the truth sets us free, isn't it? I love it. So now we talked about the EFT tapping, and I think this is really something that people can do themselves. That's what I love about EFT tapping. I also love the analogy. I learned this from another EFT practitioner. He always says that it's like Michelangelo, right? You're like chiseling away everything that's not who you are. And it's just like this becoming more of me because you
Hmm.
are your most authentic self, empowered self that operates from the calm nervous system. But we have taken on all these stories and that are not serving us, right? And
Oh,
beliefs.
yeah.
And so with the tapping over time, we can kind of chisel away one layer after another until this like beautiful sculpture that we are appears. So
Yeah. I mean, gosh, people really love their stories too, don't they, Annalena?
yeah, and so
We really get attached to them. And it sometimes takes doing a round of tapping to see that, or to
yeah.
see the places where it's like we're repeating something that we would never want to repeat, and we just
Mhm.
hadn't realized it yet.
Yeah. So let's talk about safety because safety is what we are seeking as humans, right? And I think we have become, and I think safety is what's familiar to us, right? And when I feel safe or struggle, because that's what's familiar for me, I also want to hold on to it. I think that's why often like change is so difficult for us, right? Because like, yeah, I may want to feel more relaxed, more calm, have a regulated nervous system, make more money and all these things. But if that is not familiar to my nervous system and hence not safe, we tend to push it away. So I would love for you to give you a take on that and like how this works, how we can shift what feels safe so it's aligned with what is our purest heart desire, not the ego desire, right? But really
Yeah.
what that is what we're really craving inside of us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love what you said about that quote about Michelangelo and chiseling away what we aren't, because I mean, all of this isn't about like adding something new necessarily, but it's really about removing the things that don't really feel like they belong anymore, so that what you're left with is something that's simple and something that's true and something that's resonant. Um, we don't stay attached to our stories because they're true. We stay attached to them because they feel safe. So that takes us into the safety place because the nervous system doesn't care if a story is limiting, right? It cares if it's familiar.
Mhm.
And so when you were saying like safety is what we know, sometimes what we know wasn't actually safe, but it's what we've categorized as safe. So actually leaning into what is truly safe that feels unfamiliar. But at the basic level, every human is seeking safety, safety to belong, to
Mm,
be themselves. So many of us were raised with um, different things happening that really made it feel like, gosh, it is not safe to be me on whatever level. And we want the safety that we're not going to be rejected and that we're not going to be abandoned. And so if our stories once helped us to stay safe, then even if it hurts, that's going to become part of what we consider our identity, right? Um, so then the change that you're talking about is difficult because it threatens the nervous system's idea of safety.
mm,
So the body kind of asks like, well, if I let go of this story, if I allow this change, then who will I be? And in that new identity, am I still safe? And so EFT allows us to create that kind of safety first framework. And
mm,
that allows the stories to kind of, drop away a little bit more naturally and to create some safety ourselves within the body, so that we don't feel like we need to defend so much anymore, right? So we can really repattern things. The the feminine really can help soften the grip on that. Talking about the masculine and the feminine. I think the feminine is a really important part there because it is a more relaxed state, right? So it's
mm.
easier to see what doesn't fit anymore and to just kind of let it fall away, for lack of a better way of putting it. But when we're no longer fighting ourselves or judging ourselves, and I don't, when I say no longer, I don't mean like never again, because it probably will happen again, but around a certain thing, when we're no longer fighting or judging ourselves around that thing, and we stop wasting energy, right? And then the reclaimed energy can be translated into greater capacity, and it collapses time, which is just a weird human construct anyway.
Mm. Yeah, it's really, I love the capacity because the capacity is all about the goodness we can actually hold, you know? Because I'm sure many of us, like, yeah, we have proven it to ourselves, we can make the money, we can accomplish the thing, but then we get scared and we push it away because it doesn't feel safe. And when we work on the capacity, we can receive and maintain and sustain and keep expanding at whatever our unique pace is. So it's a very, like you say, it's a very feminine energy. And I think we're so still conditioned in this, like, no, you're gonna have to take the action, you're gonna push and force. And like that will only take you so far until life is like, we can have it way easier. It's gonna be a little bit uncomfortable for a while, but let's open the capacity. It's such a beautiful visual, actually.
Yeah, but I
And
mean,
and
it
so we can receive.
the ease is exactly the thing that we're feeling is unsafe.
Yeah, right. That's exactly like it's so funny. I talked with several of my clients about this last week. Like we have to make it safe, work on feeling safe for it to be easy because it has become so familiar to us that it has to be the hustle, it has to be the grind, it has to be hard. We have to push, we have to force. And like, not really. I mean, yeah, if that's what we believe, if that's what the story we want to cling on to. And I'm always a big fan, and I think that's why I resonate personally so much with EFT tapping because it's not like you have this one energy healing session, right, where your old identity is gonna be gone and you flip like that, you're in the new one. But it's like this gradual process so that you can actually gently expand your comfort zone, right? And maybe at some point there is a quantum leap where it's like, okay, now it is quick, right? Um, because that's something I also experienced in the past. Sometimes when we do too dramatic energetic shifts, it can completely freeze us because it feels so unfamiliar. That new like state. Have you experienced that as well?
Yeah, I mean, identity shifts are weird. Like there's no better way to put it. They're bizarre. I've actually found like one of the easiest ways to ease into a new identity shift is like with like a literal like a different piece of clothing, a hat, something where it's like I'm gonna be this identity now, and it's like almost like a
Mhm.
role-playing exercise. And
Mhm.
I found it to be really helpful with entrepreneurs because a lot of times
Mhm.
it's like maybe they're used to like, I mean somebody in a business like mine, I guess like you have somebody that maybe is used to the coaching part of their job or the
Mhm.
client delivery, but they're not used to handling the back end stuff, the admin, the actual business building things. They need to put on a different hat for that
Yeah,
thing and
yeah.
do those things,
Mhm.
and practice those different identity shifts that they're becoming as if they're like an actor,
Mhm. Mhm.
and
I love
allow it to
it.
feel safer and allow it to come in a little bit because I mean, yeah, it's identity shifts are very strange and yeah, I don't know how else to say it. It's a difficult thing and we all want it.
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
know, it's like we all want to create new identity for ourselves and to be able to become that. And it's it's got to be kind of those small steps like you talked about, and it has to happen through safety and we can't force it. That's, it's funny because people will, talk about the bringing in ease or whatever else, and if we're still in that masculine state, we try to force the ease,
Yeah.
right? Which is
Yeah, yeah.
like just totally contradictory and kind
Exactly.
of funny, really. Or we're kind of making these promises to ourselves, but the body doesn't trust like a wish or a promise. It trusts
Mhm.
evidence.
Yeah.
And
No,
it
no.
also will like make up evidence.
Yeah, and I love what you share about, putting on a different hat or putting on different clothing or getting some new fancy glasses like I'm wearing right now. Because that is also something we can use externally to support shifting into this new identity, right? Who am I being in this new identity? And also keep practicing that because it kind of goes together. Because I think sometimes we can also stay stuck in all the energy healing work, right? But there are also a lot of external things we can add on to like just when we go to the gym, right? We don't want to like do a full two workout in the beginning and then be so sore we never go again. But like,
Yeah,
well, let me, put on a little bit of this identity today. Let me have fun with it. I think that's probably the most important to enjoy it, not take it too serious, see how it feels. And then at some point, you are that identity and you didn't even know when the full shift happened, right?
exactly. I mean, it's like it's always been there, I think, Annalena. Like we're not creating something that is brand new when we
Hmm.
change identities. It's like we're remembering who we are underneath of the conditioning,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
The
So the
allowing.
identity shift allows us to peel away some of the BS and actually get to what's actually under there. And
Mhm.
it's about the relationship that we have with ourselves.
Yeah.
So I always feel like, this work, if people usually come to work with me on one thing, but I'm like, it's everything. Because like our health, our relationships, our business, our wealth, like all of that is tied together. And it's all tied together by the relationship that we have with ourselves.
Mm.
And that's where the identity is anchored in too. So it's like we shift our identities when our nervous system feels safe enough to let go of stories, conditioning, that kind of thing. Um, and then yeah, and by also honoring that whatever identity we're outgrowing, it did once serve us. Like there
Yeah.
was a role, a function, a purpose, and an intention for that identity. So being able to acknowledge and even thank that part of ourselves for doing what it did when it did, because it was necessary. There was something about that that did keep us safe or did help elevate us to the next level of consciousness and awareness,
Mm.
and it all had a purpose.
Yeah, that's actually one of the most important things, right? Because otherwise we're resisting it again. And we are in like resistance to who we are, and we feel like we need to be something else, but everything only shifts from a place of acceptance and
Mhm.
gratitude because, yeah, your wounded child is your foundation and it has taught you all these lessons. And yeah, it's all about
Yeah.
love, acceptance, surrender, gratitude,
Yeah.
forgiveness towards yourself, I think, especially. And really,
Yeah.
yeah, so
And
many elements.
everything that like that wounded child version that it went through is familiar, right? It's
Mm.
familiar struggle. And you'll choose that every time over ease and pleasure and enjoyment that's unfamiliar.
Hmm.
Sad, but true.
Hmm.
Like we will choose that familiar struggle time and time again.
Yeah. And what I find, this is what, or why I find conversations like these are so important, because I think most of us, we go through life, we're not even aware of it. That
Yeah.
this old conditioning, the wounding is running the show, right? And once we become aware, we can make in every moment on a daily basis the choice, like, I choose that this is safe now. I choose
Right.
that I can let go of the identity that was stuck in scarcity or feeling abandoned or stuff like that. No, and I think that's where the power of our conscious mind really comes in. And so the conscious becomes unconscious. No, the unconscious becomes conscious, and then we can keep making this conscious choice to move towards this more like aligned place. And in the beginning, it's kind of like I'm pretending, but like I'm choosing this, and eventually it's coming from within us because it is already there, right?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
awareness is the portal to all
Yeah.
of that because
Mm.
nothing can change until we see it,
Yeah.
right? So the moment that you start noticing, like, oh, look at me. Okay, I'm over there pushing and hustling again. Okay. Well, or I'm trying to prove myself or whatever. I don't think
Yeah.
I'm worthy. All right. Then just noticing it,
Hmm.
that takes some of the power and the intensity out of it. And like you said, that's got to come through awareness.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing that I talk a lot about is genius. I think we all have a natural genius. Like your genius is, I think, what you're doing, right? It came to you. You probably weren't looking for it, but through your own life experiences, this is the work that you have been called to. And I probably would assume really lights you up.
Mhm.
And you probably would do it even if you wouldn't get paid for it, because you enjoy it so much. And there is this thing that oftentimes, yeah, we know what our genius is. And I mean, that's also a first step. I actually help people a lot also with the clarity on that, right? Because oftentimes we're so stuck in things that, and we think we have to do. Our genius is often what comes the easiest to us, actually. And I think we have been conditioned that it has to be hard, and then I think this is where your nervous system work really comes in with that, because yeah, you can know what your genius is, but if you're scared to let it be easy, if you're scared to let it be effortless, you're probably going to stay in hustle.
Absolutely. And how many of us were raised to think that to be genius, we had to know it all?
Yeah, we have to be Einstein or something, right?
It's like genius isn't actually a personality trait, right? Like you said, it's like it's more of a calling. It's something that, comes through when the conditions are just right. So,
Mhm.
yeah. And I think that the conditions required are some combination of presence and capacity and trust
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
so
Yeah,
that
I
you can
mean,
actually like listen to what comes
yeah.
through instead of
Yeah.
trying to
Yeah.
figure it out.
Yeah, because we live in a society where everything is like, you have to study this, you have to learn this. And I'm all about learning and studying. I think that's
Yeah.
beautiful. Also, like to keep training the brain and mind. But I believe that we all have a genius, the thing that comes so easy to us, very effortless. And the big problem is that we think, oh, it's too easy. Like, what's the big deal? And we often assume that what I know, everybody knows. I don't know. Do you ever have that experience for yourself where you kind of feel like
Yeah. I
everybody
have to
should know
re
this? Kind of common
I have
sense,
to
right?
remind myself all the time that like it's not actually common knowledge, a lot of the weird
Yeah,
stuff that's in my head.
yeah.
And that a lot of people don't know it or they don't see it the way that I see it. Nobody, how could they, right? Like I'm the
Hmm.
only
Hmm.
one on this earth that has the same perspective as me.
Hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, it's always going to be unique, but sometimes we forget that and we think that, oh, there's a bunch of other people doing exactly what I do or whatever. There's not,
No,
but
and this is exactly like, I mean, there's a lot of people doing EFT, but nobody does it like you. Nobody
yeah.
can bring the energy that you bring to the table. That's why I'm often so tired of when people are about like, I own this and nobody else can do this. Like, nobody owns anything. Nobody owns any word. Nobody owns any like nothing.
All
right?
just like standing on the shoulders of giants. There's so many people that
Yeah.
have come before us that have
Yeah.
done similar things or that have led the way, paved the way for us. And
Yeah.
it's a privilege. We get to add our little bit to it, and then
Yeah.
maybe that becomes something that somebody else learns from, and then they're using what we, I mean, it's yeah, and it's like we all came from the same energy. We're all going to return to the same energy. It's all
Yeah.
just swirling around. We're doing our little dance with it and finding our own uniqueness. But yeah, our genius lives like way beyond the ego that's trying to push and figure it out.
Yeah, I love that. So, what would you say do you see happen when you work with a client? Like, really, what is the shift that you witness when somebody is in a dysregulated nervous system and when somebody is in a really more regulated nervous system state?
There's a lot of shifts that are possible. One of the shifts that I didn't really expect that happens more often than I ever would have expected it does is to start working with somebody. And a lot of times like I kind of call it like the domino theory. Like if I can go farther back in time to things that happened to you way earlier in life that are kind of like the same story and the same pattern as something that just happened to you like last month or something.
Mhm.
I'd rather go back and kind of knock that domino down from way back when, because then usually we don't have as much work to do on the things that are closer to present day. So a lot of times we're working on things that are a little bit older at the beginning. And as we're doing that, oftentimes the regulated nervous system creates improved health, often in the time of weight loss if the client has extra weight that they're carrying. That's a really interesting shift that really just shows you like the difference in the cortisol levels and the regulation and things that we kind of hold on to things when we're in that state, because the body is like super alert, so it's a lot harder for us to be in a great state of health. So that's a shift that happens oftentimes. And the biggest shift is them, right? It's not necessarily their circumstances, although plenty of people start, earning more effortlessly in their jobs. They start connecting better with their partners or spouses, their kids, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
But at the heart of that, the change is them, right? Um, it's something that's softening, that's shifting. They're not fighting themselves as much anymore, and the urgency starts to settle down. The inner critic gets told to get lost, and there's just more space that gets built in between whatever the trigger is or was and their reaction that now becomes more of a response, right? And all of that is as regulation, awareness, nervous system nourishment, and even consciousness kind of elevate.
Mhm.
So those are things I see really commonly, and just a greater clarity. They're seeing things more clearly out of presence, right? So often prior to doing this work, it's like a lot of analysis, trying to like, what's wrong with me? How do I fix it? All this chatter and like an analysis paralysis too to go along with it. But like as you start to do this work, the decisions feel simpler, right?
Mhm.
Because you're releasing the fear and the ego part of it, the pressure part of it, and you're coming at it from love. And there's a huge difference in the way that we move when we're in a fear state or when we're acting out of love. And then as that capacity grows, life, business, decisions, all of that just stops feeling so overwhelming. So there's, like I said, there's a million ways that this shows up, but those are some of the common patterns and some of the interesting things that happen when people start working with their mind and their body together.
Yeah. What stood out the most is really this presence. Because when we are in a dysregulated space, we are often like regretting the past or have anxiety about the future, and we can never be fully here, right? So we actually disconnected from everything.
Yeah.
And yeah, when we're more regulated, we're there, we're like fully present. And I think, I mean, that's Eckhart Tolle's teaching, right? The power of now is
Yeah. And that's all we have,
really,
right?
yeah,
I often say like we're
exactly.
kind of like a, if we considered ourselves like a battery or something and we had a certain amount of power. A lot of times people who have anxiety are in a state of kind of future pacing, and they're sending some of that battery power into the future, a time it doesn't,
Mm,
to a place that doesn't even really exist, right?
mm,
And then for the people that are stuck on, a conversation that went wrong yesterday or something that happened 50 years ago or whatever the case may be, you're sending that battery power into the past, which is also doesn't exist. And the only place we can actually use that power, that presence, is right here, right now. The only place I can be right now is talking with you, Adelina. Like that's the only
yeah,
place I have any power, and I'd be silly to try to dilute that by sending it forward or backwards in time to a place that I can't use it.
yeah. And stillness. It's also,
Mhm.
something I think we are almost like afraid of it to just be, and it can be quiet for a little moment and actually allow people to take it in what we just talked about, because it is so important.
Yeah. We don't get enough stillness. I mean, it's
Mm.
most people are afraid to even like turn their phone off for 20 minutes,
Oh my gosh,
nonetheless,
yeah,
just
those
like
things,
be.
oh, let me tell you, yeah, it's a big distraction for sure. So you also have a program, I believe, right? Where I think you work with a group to help them work on this. Like, can you share the listeners a little bit about it? How
Yeah,
that works?
I have several programs, but like my one-on-one and small group program is called Becoming
Mhm.
More You.
Yeah.
So in that program, I do work with people both in a one-on-one capacity and in
Mhm.
small group format. And we do all the things that we've been talking about here today, from hypnosis to EFT
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
business and lifestyle coaching, and we tie it all together.
Yeah, I love that. And so the hypnotherapy, where do you see that come into play? Is sometimes you feel like EFT tapping has its limit and there's a specific person or quality that wants to be shifted where you find that hypnotherapy is more suitable?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are certain trends that tend to happen with clients. I mean, I've never worked with anybody that doesn't have some kind of case of not enoughness, right?
Yeah.
Um, there's always some level of that, and that'll come back and forth throughout our lives. I find hypnosis to be really good with that. I think that also when I'm working with people that tend to have a difficulty getting in touch with their emotions or um, just really kind of getting to the heart of the matter,
Mm,
it's a great tool because it just gets you in a different brainwave state. It very relaxing and lovely to experience. And we can talk with the subconscious mind, right? It's like
mm,
your own personal largest Google Drive ever of information and files and things that even if you don't consciously think about those things or think that you remember them, they are always there and they are
mm,
deep rooted in your programming. So when we can kind of change states and get into there and see what the subconscious wants to bring forward, oftentimes it's a little bit different than when we're talking consciously. Because I would say most people that, come into my world to work with me, they kind of already know what's up. Like they know
yeah.
like, okay, I experienced this thing when I was, young and now I feel this way, or, I'm not confident because of this or whatever. And it's all these conscious interpretations, but sometimes the subconscious has a much different story,
Mm,
or the things we
mm,
think are, creating issues for us are not actually the things. So I think it can be really helpful there. And then I just think from a, reprogramming, rewiring standpoint, it's amazing. I love
mm,
to create very personalized tracks for my clients in hypnotherapy that they listen to for a couple of weeks time. My
mm,
team sets them to like beautiful binaural beats so they really get deep in there. And that's what it takes to really get the subconscious on board with
mm.
your desires and wishes and things
Yeah.
so that it accepts them and allows you to keep moving forward with it.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I also love Bruce Lipton's work. I think he talks a lot about that. So
Yes, I love Bruce too.
wonderful. Well, I love everything you've shared, the work that you do. I think it's so important in today's hectic, filled with distraction world. And I always like to ask this one big question at the end, because time is flying as always. What is the one biggest lesson you would say that has completely transformed your life, or like this piece of wisdom that you want to leave the listeners with?
Hmm. That's a big question, Annalena. Um, what is the biggest piece of wisdom that's affected my
You know,
life?
if it would be just this one thing that you want
Just
people to
one
take
thing.
away.
I think, okay, so if it was just one thing, I would say it's realizing that nothing has ever been wrong with me. You know, that I was always just operating from a body, a mind that didn't quite feel safe yet, didn't quite feel on board yet with where my higher self was headed. And yeah, and I think everything kind of unfolds from there.
Yeah. We're perfect as we are, right? When we accept, we shift automatically. And I also think that doesn't have to be so hard. Because
Mm-mm.
sometimes, we're like, no, I
Yep.
have to heal first before I can do it. But no, we can all do it together. It's like, it's a process, anyways. And we are an evolution. Life is an evolution. And this is something I learned through human design. There's a particular gate or gene key, the 35. It's like the only constant we ever have is change.
Mhm.
And also who we are, it's not this fixed state. That also evolves over time. So I love that.
Yeah.
But we
Learning to
get,
navigate change is a big advantage for those who do, for sure.
yeah.
Because, like you said, that's the only thing that we can really count on is that nothing will stay the same.
Yeah. And it's also like we can also only really change towards our desires when we can accept where we're at, right? It's this like conundrum in a way because we're often in this like when we are in it, there's something wrong with me, that will just become a bigger story until we realize, no, you're not. So that's why it's super powerful and important to always remember that there's nothing wrong with any one of us. So thank you for that.
Mm, my pleasure. Thank you for all your beautiful insights and the ways that you've helped to connect all these dots today, too. It's been a pleasure talking with you.
Yeah, it was super wonderful. Thank you again, Teresa. I wish you all the best on your journey and everyone that feels called to reach out to her. I will have all her details and contact information on the show notes. I think you have a website, you have an Instagram, you also have a school community,
Yeah,
Becoming More Me, and you can book a call with her. So I will have that all for you. Please reach out to her, connect with her. And yeah, I'm super.
there's lots of opportunities there to actually like get videos and ways to do EFT tapping and
Oh, wonderful.
hypnosis that you can try, which I would just highly encourage anybody that's curious, like within my school
Mhm.
community or my YouTube channel,
Yeah.
because once you kind of can experience that shift yourself, it's pretty
Mhm.
magical.
I love this too because, if somebody feels called to work with you, I think it's always important to kind of try it out first. How does the
Yeah,
energy feel? And that's very nervous system regulated approach, I find. That is wonderful. So thank you for all of this. So yeah, go check out all her free resources.
thank you.
And I'm super excited to be back with you all on the next episode. And again, Teresa, thank you for being here. It was such a joy and pleasure. Ciao, everyone.